Hey, it's Matthew. I sometimes think about how is business the same or different than math and physics? And I studied math and physics engineering in college for 6 years and didn't really study business until I started my own business. And then, of course, trial by fire at that point. And since that time, many years ago, I've been studying business at great length and creating business resources to help other people learn about business. And again, I often think about math and physics and business and how they all relate. So let's talk about that. So math and physics, most people hate those subjects because they find them very difficult, and I can certainly understand that. Math and physics are difficult, but here's the thing about math and physics. Obviously there's some easy things to understand about math and physics. If you're starting with accounting, counting numbers and subtracting numbers and adding numbers and that kind of thing, those things are pretty easy. But once you get up to algebra and calculus, then things become much more challenging for most people. But here's the cool thing about physics and math is once you know the formula, you can get the right answer. And you have the right answer, right? And there's inputs that go into math and the various formulas related to math and physics, and then there's outputs. And if you know how to do these things, you always know whether the answer is correct or not. And that's what's really cool about math and physics for geeks like me is you always know you've gotten the right answer. And sometimes obviously it takes work to get there, but you'll eventually get that right answer. Now business is completely the opposite. Business is actually very easy to understand. In comparison to math and physics, very easy to understand. In fact, if I were to sit with someone who had no business experience and I were to explain to them various aspects of business, various individual concepts of business, they'd understand it. The average person would understand it. It's not really that difficult to break down each element of business and then just have a discussion and explore those elements and understand them. Pretty easy stuff. Here's where it becomes challenging, is that there's no right answers, right? Unlike math and physics, which can be really hard to understand, but you're making the right answer. With business, easy to understand, but you have no idea of what the right answer is. Even if you're making decisions that end up being successful for you, however you measure success financially, your customers, or whatever it is, even if they end up being successful, you still don't know if that was the best answer. Maybe if you would have adjusted something, you'd have even more success, right? So you just never know what the right answer is. And that's what's super difficult and challenging about business, is you have to constantly try to predict the future. You have to kind of look at every decision you have to make and say, okay, what are the permutations? What are the possible outcomes of the decision I'm going to make? If I make this decision, this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen. If I make this decision, this could happen, or this could happen. And then you have to think through all of those consequences. In some ways, it's almost like statistics and trying to determine what the most likely outcome is and so on. And of course, this is all if you kind of believe that our world is somewhat indeterministic, right, and somewhat random. If you believe in fate 100%, it doesn't matter what we do, then maybe this discussion doesn't matter. But if you believe what I believe, which is, hey, look, our decisions will have consequences, then in business you never know the right answer. And that's really the biggest challenge in business, is you're constantly faced with decisions, and you often have incomplete information to make those decisions. You have competing priorities. Well, if I make this decision, then I can't do this, or maybe this is more important than this. And you have to, as a leader, ultimately determine, what the probabilities of the future outcomes are, and choose the right one. And cross your fingers, do your best you can, and hope for success. Anyway, that's some thoughts on how business is the same or different than physics and math. Hopefully, if you're geeky like me, you might have found that interesting as well. I'm Matthew Giorgio.